All right, we're live, or at least I am. Um, Welcome back to another episode of the crazy people that just eat meat and can't stop talking about it. It's just me, Tom, today. Justin is actually in town, but busy with all kinds of stuff going on. I got a little feedback I got to take care of. So, anyways, took care of that. So, anyways, sorry about that. So, anyways, he couldn't join us today. Joe's work schedule didn't allow him to show up. So hopefully get Joe back on soon. And been talking to a few other people about coming in for a visit. So I just want to talk about the subject of why people, a lot of people, not everybody, of course, comes to carnivore. Um, Anytime you're talking about some sort of alternate diet or way of eating, the focus is often on weight loss. You do get quite a few people are just they want to lose weight. So, but in my experience, most of the people, at least in the beginning, that came to carnivore did it because they had some sort of chronic condition that wouldn't resolve otherwise. And I think that gets easy to forget because so much goes on in the conversations with all the different types of trends that you see. Some people are hell bent on just eating high fat or high protein or fasting or intermittent fasting or, eating nose to tail. And I think in the beginning, for me, anyways, this is all about quality of life. And while I'm not opposed to trying those things, and of course, we could throw in supplements and whether you're using seasonings or not, or what have you, whether you eat salt or not, whether you have to eat salt or whether beef salt and water is the purest method of trying carnivore or not. I think we forget that people come to this way of eating with chronic conditions, and they're not all going to resolve just because they are eating meat, and they're not all going to resolve at the same rate. Many people do lose body fat and gain muscle. Some people have clearly had miraculous weight loss, but then I see people leaving comments like, "Oh, this is not a weight loss diet or whatever," and it's like, well, for some people it clearly is. In fact, probably the majority of people it clearly is. So, um, and of course, some people like Emily, she lost like 100 pounds in less than a year, which is amazing, and seemed to go right to what is an ideal weight. So, but that's kind of miraculous. It doesn't happen for everybody. A lot of people, it takes longer, and people will plateau. Some people don't lose any weight, but they feel a lot better. They're thinking a lot clearer. They're needing less medication, and their quality of life is, um, by their own account, well improved. So I think that's where we need to keep the focus now as to whether you need to eat nose to tail or you got to eat a bunch of liver or kidney or thymus gland or whatever it is. Kind of depends because, some people go to those types of remedies for things like histamine issues. And that could have to do with some pre existing condition. It could have to do with something in their environment, could be genetic, could be their food source is, just out of range of what they tolerate. It's hard to say. I mean, what the animals we eat has some bearing on how well we tolerate it. So that could be it. And it's suspected that people that don't do well on pork and chicken, it could very well be all the soy that animal was fed. But for some people, it doesn't seem to make any difference. And I know some people that I've known for quite a while. They're very passionate about you have to eat nose to tail, or you have to eat grass fed only, grass fed, grass finished, purest sort of sources of beef, and it's the only way. And they feel it's the only way it should be for everyone. But then I observe quite a few people that are thriving on regular meat that's typically grain finished. So, and some people, they get upset if a cow's even fed alfalfa. It's like, oh no, it has to be pure pasture raised grass. It's like, well, that's not always reality, because you can't just take your cattle wherever you want, and when there isn't enough grass on your paddocks, then you do have to supplement with things like alfalfa. And I suspect that there's nothing wrong with that. I seriously doubt it changes the quality of the meat or the nutrition of the meat, or brings in elements that are passed on to us through diet that has much of an influence. But for some reason, that is a big issue with people. And I don't know if you finally have some sort of allergy or intolerance for it, so be it. But it doesn't seem to be that way for most people. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. For me, the question is, are you feeling better? Are you getting healthier? Are you meeting your goals? And of course, it's important to have goals. And I think for people who just want to be leaner or lose some weight, as it were, having goals oftentimes isn't um, apparent to them, because it's the only thing that really compels them. But a lot of other people have much bigger goals. So, whether it is, bringing down their levels of anxiety, or being fit enough just to go for a walk, or just getting past their um, incredible cravings, and people, you know, below it all. And some people are very vocal about it, but there's a lot of people with tremendous eating disorders that they suffered with for years. They've been trying very desperately um, to manage. Well, Marge is here. Hello, Marge. Good to see you. Let me get this up here. So, anyways, people come to it for different reasons, and chronic conditions don't necessarily resolve immediately, right? I know for me personally, arthritis, joint pain, sciatica, hands that didn't work was a big issue. So um, that resolved itself very quickly for me. But I'd also suffered from high levels of anxiety, and that was the sort of thing that tapered off over time. And so I started carnivore sometime in 2017. And somewhere in there, shortly after I went carnivore, I went back to keto for a little bit. My intention was to do it for like a month to compare. And I think I made it less than a week. And I was like, wow, carnivore was just worked way better for me. So I've been eating this way for a number of years now, because it's now March 2023. So um, I in over that time, things like anxiety have tapered off, and I could say clearly my anxiety is lower right now than it was a year ago, and that includes the sort of idiopathic anxiety where you're just like out of nowhere it hits you, which rarely happens to me anymore, but was common before. And then the sort of event driven anxiety, like, somebody dies, or, you get a nasty email about you get a tremendous bill or something you have to pay that you weren't expecting, or whatever. The car breaks down, you know, get a confrontation with another person. Somebody gets angry with you, or you get angry with them, or whatever. So, uh, I think clearly I accidentally figured out that some of that sort of idiopathic anxiety really was caused by certain types of foods. I told a story one time, like, out of the blue, I ate an apple turnover that somebody else left laying around. Oh, Sarah Sapien, how are you? It's good to see you. I saw you in the comments earlier. So, anyways, that eating that apple turnover which is something I hadn't had in a long time. Not a particularly good quality one. It was kind of more of the thing that I was hungry. I wanted to cook some food, and I had to do a bunch of stuff to get to cooking the food. And so I took that. I was like, one little apple turnover isn't going to bother me, but it did. And it was probably 2 hours later, all of a sudden, I had this intense, anxious feeling. And I was like, why do I feel this way? Because when something happens that triggers anxiety, some sort of confrontation or whatever, you're not, you know what sort of inspired it. But when it just comes out of the blue and there doesn't seem to be any way, uh, let's see, Michael Marsh comment, sorry, deviate. He says, your woman is still AWOL. I think he's making a joke about Justin not being here because I make jokes about Justin being my little sister. So Justin has cut his hair and so no longer spends exorbitant amounts of time playing with his hair and making us extra late for videos and stuff like that. So, but he is in town, but he is, I think, in some sort of family engagement. So I'm actually having dinner with him and his wife in a couple of hours. So yeah, we're gonna meet up for some Korean barbecue over at the Thirsty Cow. If anybody's ever been to the Thirsty Cow, it's quite a great place to have some Korean barbecue, but it's also very, very busy. So be prepared. If you're not a crowd person, you may not like it because they have some weird hours. So you got to line up they open at like 5 p.m. For dinner. They're closed otherwise. You got to get in line and be in that first batch, or you got to wait for all those people to finish eating, which takes an hour and a half to get in. So anyways, it's kind of wacky that way. But yeah, that's where we're going. Justin has a lot of friends from the area that's over in Roland Heights. So a lot of his pals from the area, they wanted to go there for a bite to eat. So anyways, I was there with my buddy Joel and Tim and Joel's girlfriend not that long ago. So it was a very enjoyable place to eat. So lots and lots of meat to eat there. So it's one of those things where you cook it at the table yourself. So it's kind of fun. So anyways, yeah, Justin's not here, and I hope next Sunday he'll be able to join us, but he'll be doing it remotely, of course. He'll be back in Missouri, so he is married. I don't think that's any sort of secret. He got married recently, so it's one of the reasons why he's out in California, do some family stuff with both of their families. So anyways, good times. So it was good having them here. They've been here for I guess about 4 days now, something like that. We had a little soiree last night for their families, so and friends. So I had a little hangout last night. It was good times. Grilled a lot of steaks, hamburgers, hot dogs, and yes, there were fruits and vegetables for the non-carnivores, which there's really only 2 of us carnivores here and like 20 other people. So you know how that goes. But anyways, yeah, so back to it. I know just about everybody in the comments right now could probably, suggest what type of chronic ailments they were dealing with before they changed their diet or the way they eat. And I'd imagine most of you still have some issues that you're still dealing with. And that leads us to the other question I was get is why does somebody need a carnivore coach? And I'm going to guess something like half the people don't need a coach. They read about it, what the basics of it are, and they just do it. They just execute it, and that's that. But a number of people, especially people recovering for chronic conditions, will have a lot of questions. It could be anything like, my lifestyle is very busy. I'm not one of those people that's working from home, which, ever since the modern pestilence has become even more common. So I'm not home to just stroll into the kitchen and cook something and eat it for lunch or whatever. I spend a lot of time in traffic, and my day out of the house could be kind of long. Leave in the morning, sit in traffic, go to the office, sit in traffic, go to the gym, and then finally come home. So I meal prep. That's a big deal for me. When it comes to shopping, that means I got to know what I want in advance, where I'm going to get it, and you know, I'm relatively frugal, so I want to get a decent deal on my meat. So I'm not just going to buy it anywhere, but with a little bit of work, you figure out, oh, this is, here's a reliable place to buy the meat I like, um, at a reasonable price. I mean, you can literally pay twice as much money for the same exact cut of meat from the same exact type of cow, you know, at two different stores. So and I think here in California we do, especially Southern California, we do have a little bit of an advantage. We seem to pay less for our beef here. So if we do have a lot of cattle here. There is a lot of beef raised in California, and there is a very large population here. There's probably 40 million people just in California, which of course is more people than there are in Canada, and there's more people in Canada than Australia or whatever. So give you some idea. And there's something like 300 plus million people in the whole country, and 40 million of them live in one state. So one out of 50 states has 40 million versus I'm going to guess there's like 350 million people in the US total. So because of that, there's a large concentration of people. There's lots of stores. The stores tend to be more competitive, I think. So we do have that advantage here, but still, you know, um, I plan ahead, shop ahead, cook ahead, prep my meals, prep all my meals. And that's important. And I'm spoken to or been asked by a number of people, um, how I do it. They find it really difficult because one of the other models, and a lot of this early stuff came down from Dr. Fung, and he a lot of his patients, they did fasting and they ate burger patties from Wendy's or McDonald's, whatever, and that's a viable way to do it for sure. People have had success at that. Now some people bulk at um the quality of the meat from the fast food restaurants, and I'm sure it varies. It's all over the place. Here in California, of course, particularly Southern California, we have a lot of In-N-Outs. They're kind of pride themselves on non-frozen, pure U.S. beef in their patties. Their patties aren't particularly large, but you can go buy patties, or you can buy patties with cheese. The Flying Dutchmans we're always talking about. So it's pretty easy. I don't really know the quality of all the other brands, whatever, but there are people who have been quite successful just eating burger patties from other restaurant chains. So, but that's not everybody's idea of eating well. So they'd rather have a steak, or they'd rather cook whatever chicken or make chili. That's another thing I started doing when Joe was out. Joe and Justin were here. Was I started cooking chili, which usually is ground beef, and then I usually cut up steak. So there's like little cubes of steak in it and stuff like that. And I don't season it heavily. Part of that is because my dog likes to eat it, and I don't want to give her a bunch of seasonings. And the other part is you can always add some seasoning to it. I like my hot sauces. I don't seem to have a problem with it. So those are the kind of things that you help people. In this case, for busy people, prepping your meals is important. For people who easily go off the rails, prepping their meals tends to help, because if the food is there and available and it's something they want, they're less likely to eat off the menu. They're less likely to eat something that is gonna throw them down the carb hole or something like that. So and then the other thing is too is people they have the typical mentality of the New Year's resolution, right? It's I'm gonna change everything now. I'm gonna change the way I eat. I'm gonna start exercising. I'm gonna start doing yoga Pilates, fasting, drinking 2 gallons of water a day, taking supplements, on and on and on. And so generally that's too much for a person. So, generally I suggest to people, unless they're, some people are just balls to the wall. They jump in head first, um, and that's fine. If they want to jump in head first and do everything they can right out of the gate, that's a personal thing. But for most people, it tends to work better if they do one thing at a time. If they stop and they develop the habit of just learning to eat meat, having it ready, however they're going to do it, fast food it, make it at home, prep it and pack it like I do, um, or some other way, just get in the habit for at least a month, if not 3 months, and see where you're at. And then start the other thing, start hitting the gym, or whatever it is you're going to do. But don't do too much at once. So those are the kind of things that are helpful. And it's the kind of things that people can see the incremental improvement in quality of life when they address each component, whatever is in their goals. Now, I don't do any fasting. I know I have lots of, shall we say, carnivore friends that do, at least periodically, some that do it regularly, and it can be a very, I will attest that it could be a very powerful lever to pull. But for me as a lifestyle, it didn't really work, because I like lifting every day, and I felt it interfered with my progress in lifting, made things way more erratic. So, anyways, I don't, but it works for some people. So, I mean, anybody who's on Facebook knows how popular, or probably knows how popular it can be. So, but not me. And you know, but if somebody wanted help with that, I'd certainly help them with it. You know, so but I wouldn't recommend doing that at the same time you're changing your diet, because anytime you drastically change your diet, you're probably going to get some indigestion. Now, I didn't. When I started keto, I didn't. My digestion just got better. Then I transferred to carnivore, and my digestion still just got better. Some people, they could have diarrhea, they could have constipation. You know, you eat a lot of fat, you can get queasy, or even, uh, vomit. If you're not used to it, those things can happen. They're not uncommon, but I'd say most people, they have little or very minor indigestion when they change their diet. And of course, it depends on how drastic it is. I mean, you can just quit cold turkey and start eating meat and never look back, or you could just gradually replace the other things in your diet with more meat, and figure out, oh, ribeye better than a strip loin, or vice versa. People typically do better high fat, but if you overdo the fat in the beginning, you have some digestive issues, probably diarrhea. So probably don't want to jump into it too fast. So, but you should be able to incrementally notice that your quality of life is better. It's usually things like you're sleeping better, like the quality sleep you have when you're sleeping is better. Not necessarily sleeping more. Some people do sleep more. Some people actually sleep less but feel more rested, and they're both normal. And of course, if you're not tired during the day, you don't feel like you could lay down and take a nap in the middle of the day, then you're probably pretty well rested, right? And then people also tend to get more in touch with their actual hunger signals as opposed to their cravings, right? So if you actually feel like eating a steak, you're probably genuinely hungry. Whereas if feel like nibbling on something sweet, or whatever your thing is, maybe it's something crunchy, then you're maybe not so hungry. You just are having some sort of craving. So, and of course, by the time you get into it, let's say you've been just eating meat for 3 months, and your digestion's good and all that, you should notice that your aches and pains are improved, your anxiety and depression have improved, your quality sleep is improved, your overall mood is improved, and then you should, in somewhere around there, most people tend to have more energy. They feel like doing more stuff. They typically feel like engaging more, We see that a lot more. We see that a lot in the autistic community, with both kids and adults, that they seem to be able to communicate more effectively. Whether that's just because the right parts of the brain are finally fueled better, or they're just less distracted by all the other discomforts and anxiety or depression, or abdominal discomfort from being on the wrong diet previously, or whatever it is. They tend to engage more. They tend to be able to communicate better, or whatever way they can communicate. So, and of course, as people's blood pressure gets better, blood sugar gets better, their depression gets better, anxiety gets better, then the doctors will typically help that person, you know, to use less medication. And less medication tends to lead to less side effects, right? Because we all know, you spend any length of time on a medication, you're likely to encounter some side effects of the medication, and the side effects of the medication often require more medications. So as that stuff tapers off, your mind is clear, your hunger signals are clear, your sleep patterns tend to be more regular and more restful. And, you know, anybody who's finally gets a good night's rest realizes their mood's a lot better. So it's not hard to imagine that your quality of life is going to drastically improve. So, um, aside from that, let's say that we all probably know somebody who tried it for a while and fell off the wagon. Typically, those are people that hadn't done it very long. Oftentimes, I see what is kind of warning against is trying too many things at one time. They're supplementing, they're picking up a new activity, some sort of athletic or exercise activity that they weren't doing, and they didn't have a good strategy for making sure they had the right food when they needed it. A lot of people, they do the OMAD or 2MAD or whatever. They're only eating once or twice a day, and that does make it easier, but that doesn't work for everybody. And if you need to eat 3 or 4 or 5 times a day, you gotta plan ahead and be prepared more. And that will trip people up, because it's like, oh man, I'm hungry, I'm not home, or I don't have the food, so I'm just gonna go get some fast food, and then here comes the French fries and the Coke or whatever come back in. So, and the bread and all that. So a good thing to do is to just to form the habit and figure out how you're gonna eat what you need to eat. And for a lot of people, they don't have any idea how much they're supposed to eat, right? So you can just, if you're patient and things aren't too out of whack, you can just say, "Oh, let me eat some, see how I feel." And then if I'm hungry, just eat some more, and that can work. If you're a busy person and you're out of the house like I am, and you're depending on being prepared, it can be very helpful to have some idea how much energy you're going to need. So, you can use electronics to help you sort of gauge how much energy you're expending in a day, or how much you can anticipate expending in a day, so you can be prepared. Because people, believe it or not, a lot of people who are typically overweight will undereat and not know it. And when you undereat, when you're right on the bubble, your body can actually conserve body fat. It will resist burning the reserves if it thinks that food is scarce. Once you trip that mechanism, and it does that by lowering your output, you feel more tired, you don't feel like moving, and that's your body conserving. And then when you get people well fed, and as many people have demonstrated, you can eat an excess amount of calories and still get leaner and still build muscle. So now I know a lot of people think, oh, I don't want to be a bodybuilder or whatever, but at the end of the day, building muscle and being strong is probably the thing that will keep you alive the longest, just because you won't be feeble. The more agile and ambulatory you are, the longer you're likely to live. And, there's a number of tests that they use to sort of evaluate, how people are aging physically. It could be grip strength, it's how well you can get out of a chair or whatever. and all those are sort of strength based. And if you're not eating enough meat, um, and you're not active enough, you're not going to maintain muscle mass. You're going to lose muscle mass. And it's to your advantage to put a good amount on. I mean, when you get sick and you're laid up or whatever, you get injured, you're probably going to lose muscle mass. So the more you have to lose, the stronger you'll be while you're recovering. And there's this, study that showed that if you're over 55 and you fall and break a hip, you have roughly a 50-50 chance of being alive in a year. And it's the fall of breaking the hip obviously doesn't kill most people. Some people do. They have a heart attack or stroke or something, and that's the end pretty quick. But most people survive without the heart attack, and the hip gets repaired at the hospital, but they never recover from the surgery. So this is particular too. I've known, I had a couple of people in the family this happened to. They were older, but they had high blood sugar and stuff like that, and the wounds never healed, and it was a mess. So, anyways, that's another example. Obviously, if you're agile and you're strong, I mean, muscle will protect bone, and if you're building muscle and maintaining muscle, you are more likely to have stronger bones too. Because this is one of the things that hardens the bones is the tugging on them by your activities. And naturally, you need your muscles to do those activities. There's actually receptors in the long bones that regulate how dense the bone is based on the impact. So things like walking, bouncing, jumping, stuff like that will actually increase the bone density. And of course, you need nutrition for that too. And as I pointed out before, everybody thinks like, oh, your bones are made out of calcium or something like that. But really, your bones, the structure of your bones is a type of collagen, the extracellular matrix. Your bones are made out of protein, and you need plenty of protein. And as we've heard over and over again, the older you get, typically the less you're able to assimilate the proteins that you're eating. So you actually need to eat more so that you get more in and you're able to repair things. So including your bones. Now your bones, you do store things like calcium in your bones, and it does help harden the bone to have the calcium, but you have to have the protein skeleton there to support the cells that are in the bone, right? That is the majority of the structure of the bone is protein, and that protein comes from eating animals. So, and of course, you need the animal fat to fuel you. So, and we could talk a lot about how animal fat is a superior fuel to carbohydrates, which we get from plants. But really, I think the important thing is to realize you need that protein in order to stay agile and strong. And it's not about being a competitive weightlifter or bodybuilder or anything like that. It's really about maintaining quality of life through maintaining strength and agility, right? You're not going to be particularly agile if you don't have any muscles or if your bones break easy. So anyways, if you're younger, maybe you have to worry about it less, but certainly by the time you get to middle age, you really need to be thinking about your older age, right? And I don't know. It's a good question for everybody. Does anybody not know of somebody in their family or friends circles that has fallen and broken a hip when they're older? I remember hearing these stories from the time I was a child. It seems like a really common problem. So I didn't actually look up any statistics, but maybe next time I will and see how frequently it happens or how common it is. But in the meantime, leading up to that, I think most people here would attest that eating a meat-based diet has led to a higher quality of life, regardless of their chronic conditions that they've had or that they're still dealing with, right? So I don't know if anybody wants to comment in this section there, but anyways, that is much of the reason why people come to carnivore and why they stay. It's because it's a better quality of life. It tends to help um, improve their chronic conditions. I know for me, like I said, it was arthritis and anxiety primarily. I actually, um, I primarily did it for the arthritis, not with no expectation of improving anxiety. I just kind of sort of um, started to come around that you know I was suffering from this anxiety disorder. Hadn't really paid it enough attention. Didn't really. I kind of it's kind of that thing where I thought everybody felt like that. So um, it took me a long time to realize that. And of course, once starts going away, you're like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be. Huh, who knew, right? So anyways, but it's a nice surprise. But my memory's gotten sharper, and I've mentioned before that, I was diagnosed with learning disabilities a long time ago, and essentially it comes down to what most of us know as dyslexia, and I've noticed that has improved as well. So and a big part of dyslexia is not being able to recall like a phone number in order or something like that. And I noticed that that just happens without even really having to try to remember it. It's not that it eliminated it; it's just that it's much less of a problem, which of course lends itself to quality of life. So, anyways, it doesn't seem like people have too many comments tonight, but anyways, I will wrap it up then. I got, I think I made all my points, and nobody seems to have any comments or questions tonight. So we'll let this one slide down the dinosaur. And until next week, hopefully we get Justin back in here. Maybe we'll get Joe back in here. And anyways, everybody, thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. Oh, now, oh man, a whole bunch of comments just popped up. Must have been some little glitch because boom, I see Christina popped in at 5:20. Michael Marsh said the majority of my coaching clients are folks with MS and autoimmune and bipolar. Yeah, there you go. Michael Marsh says hi to Christina. It's also some supply and demand. So many vegans in Cali, so it drives the process down for carnivores. Yeah, it's true. That a lot of people that came to carnivore were vegans. And honestly, they're some of the easiest people to work with because they know what it's like to change their eating habits. They tend to be relatively disciplined people, and when they make that switch from having been, a true vegan or to a meat-based diet or carnivore diet, their results are very clear to them. So they've gone from one extreme to the other, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm, everything's recovering from, they tend to have tremendous digestive issues. They tend to have lost their libido. They tend to be having problems with energy for sure. They're sleeping a lot more. Obviously, it's hard to maintain much muscle or strength on a vegan diet. The people that do usually use all kinds of blended plant proteins, which is a lot of work. You wind up, chugging a bunch of processed shakes, which is probably not what they were looking for when they got into it. They thought they were going to eat, whole, healthy, natural, you know, plant-based foods, and then all of a sudden they're like, wow, I got to supplement my vitamins, and I got to take these, mixed protein shakes, or I start withering away. So let's see. Sarah says, I recently got into pressure canning. I can make 20 jars of stew meat meals in about 90 minutes. Oh, that's impressive. So that's like, I'm guessing that's like 20 meals in 90 minutes. Yeah, that's some solid That's some solid food prepping right there. I've never canned anything, so and oddly enough, I have a zillion canning jars around. So they might have previously served another purpose, but I don't know. Maybe I'll have to try that. Maybe I'll try canning some stew. Probably be pretty good. And then Marge says, "I fast when I sleep." There you go. So there is a natural sort of fasting built in, hence the name breakfast, right? So, and then Christina says, "Oh, my grandmother was one of 18 kids, and three of her sisters have died from falls. Unfortunately, my grandma has fallen a lot too. Her doc recently told her if she falls again, she won't make it. It's sad. Wow, that is sad. Wow, 18 kids. I didn't know what to be stunned by more. The 18 kids or three of her sisters have fallen and died. Whew. Both those numbers are a little shocking. But yeah, I apologize too because for some reason the comments weren't showing up, and then all of a sudden a whole bunch of them showed up. It's like they stopped at 5:15 and I didn't see any, and then all of a sudden, boom, they all appeared. So some little glitch there, just getting caught up. Appreciate everybody being here. And yeah, so there you go. I'd imagine most people have their own stories about um, who, how many people they've heard of in their life. Their friends, relatives, friends of their parents, whatever, have fallen and broken a hip. It's rough. So not where you want to be as an elderly person. You want to be strong, energetic, agile, have a sharp brain. I know I've got somebody in my life that, an older family member, not that old, like retirement age, not elderly really, but having trouble remembering things, an active person. And I try and tell this person, legit, just change your diet. Just one day, just for one day, try just eating meat. See if you feel any different. And it's like, it's not gonna happen. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how many times I say, "Oh man, you're doing great. I'm glad you don't have those problems anymore. I'm glad you're doing well. Glad to see, I can't believe, some people are like, they see the schedule I keep up and they're kind of shocked. Of course, I know people have worse schedules than mine and have to work harder, but they can imagine doing it because they're like, where do you get the energy? So much less, you know, I don't know. I posted today. Somehow it seems like it's impossible, but I went to the gym today. Today is March 4th, I think, right? So is it the 4th or the 5th? Today is the 5th. So they had dated the little list on the chalkboard at the gym, and somehow in February I made it to the gym 31 times, which is a little shocking because it seemed like I missed a few days, and part of that's just people visiting from out of town or what have you. So work running really late or whatever, but somehow I made it to the gym 31 days. I lifted all those days. So I ask other people, I'm 52. I'm like, how many 52-year-olds that can lift every day, much less lift half of what I lift. And I broke all my PRs after 40. So that's no small thing, especially since I used to lift before. Wasn't like I just started. So I don't know if that's not a testament, if I'm more social now. There's a lot of obvious evidence to my improvements to people who've known me for any length of time, but still it doesn't seem to be enough testimony to get people to say, hey man, just eat meat all day for one day. Let's see. Lamb says, hi all, shouldn't we be able to do physical work without eating as long as we have sufficient fat reserves? Thoughts? Well, I would say, yeah. I think if you don't eat frequently enough, you are going to lose muscle, though. So, but yeah, you don't have to necessarily fuel constantly. And for me, the holy grail, the trick is to add muscle while you're taking off excess body fat. All right. So that's kind of the holy grail. And a lot of people say you can't do it because you're either in an anabolic state or a catabolic state, right? One or the other. You can't do both. But I think you can switch back and forth frequently enough that you can um, use up that excess fat reserve, like Lambs is talking about, um, as well as adding muscle. And the longer you go without eating, the more likely you are to start expending muscle. Even with the muscle sparing, fasting mimicking type diets, how are you going to add muscle if you're not taking in protein? So, and how are you not going to lose muscle eventually, right? So it's really a matter of how long you're doing it. So, and then Marjorie Martinez says, I actually get extremely bloated when I undereat. Interesting. My hormones need a lot of food at my age. So there you go. Yeah, in a world where it's, in a community where it's popular to OMAD or 2MAD, eat once or twice a day or whatever. I eat frequently. I eat at least 4 times a day. Depends. I mean, if I'm really active, I easily eat 6 times a day, if not maybe 7. So, but I'm also, I'm going to expend 4,000 calories a day. And who wants to sit down and eat 4,000 calories worth of meat at one time? It's not that it can't be done. It's not that some people don't do it. I don't like doing that. I'm not, I don't enjoy it. So I break it up. And then, of course, on a really active day, I can easily burn 6,000 calories. And of course, I like to say my most active day on record where I'm actually monitoring my activity electronically, it was 10,000 calories. So certainly not going to eat 10,000 calories in 1 or 2 meals. So I don't find it advantageous. So I don't. But it works for some people, and some people eating 2,000 calories in one meal is not so bad. Or, and some people are below that, they only need 1,800 or whatever. But I look at it too, like the fat is the fuel, the protein is what you rebuild your body with, right? So everything, I mean, your hair is made out of protein, your hair is growing, your fingernails are growing, they're made out of protein, your bones need to be repaired. And when you stop eating fruit, we talked about this before. There's studies that show that when you eat fruit, you have fructose in your system. It interferes with the repair of collagen, and collagen is an important protein throughout your body for everything from your bones to all over your body. Most of your extracellular matrix and then some, right? And so if you stop eating fruit, and your body's like, oh, start clearing out this fructose, then it can start repairing all that collagen that was inhibited by the fructose. So those people are probably going to their body is probably going to do better with a little more protein, right? So when you're in the beginning stages of, going on a meat-based diet, you tend to be doing a lot of repair. Just, ask the vegans that came over, or just the plant-based people. Ask them about all the changes that happen very drastic, very quickly for them. But it's not like everything is going to heal and be perfect right away, right? Some things take more time, but there are some very noticeable improvements up front typically. So even the people who complain like, I've been eating carnivore for a year and I didn't lose any weight. When you talk to them, you generally find all these other things that got better. And you're like, well, there's ways to work on losing weight, if that's really your only goal. And of course, I like to parse it out. I like to talk about composition as opposed to just losing weight. It's like you want to be leaner and you want to put muscle on, right? That's the change in composition. So Lamb says that makes sense, especially when building muscle is a goal. Yeah. And I think that should be everybody's goal. I mean, you can be putting on muscle for a long time and you're never gonna look like a bodybuilder, like Arnold Schwarzenegger or God, I'm trying to think of his name. Anyways, you know what I'm talking about. The guys with the ridiculously sculpted muscles, and what they look like through time changes. Before Schwarzenegger, nobody had those giant pectoral muscles. The biceps weren't quite that big and stuff like that. Um, I think of Ronnie Coleman. So Ronnie Coleman, probably one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time. If you look at him, the vast majority of people could never look like him, even even with steroids and peptides and hormone replacement and stuff like that. It's not going to happen. But building muscle, at a nice pace, well, I'm sure will keep you alive longer. So, at least based on the way most people die. So, anyways, I guess I will wrap it up now. Now that I saw everybody's comments, I don't think there's any. I don't think they're, because lambs just popped up there. So, I don't think they're stuck anymore. They got unstuck. Oop. Just got one from Scandemic. My health is the best on carnivore, Scandemic says. Whenever I cheat on the diet, I feel sick and low energy. Sweet fruits make me feel the worst. Yeah. Well, you're not alone. I mean, some people eat a little bit of fruit and tolerate it. I know I got a friend, I'll tell the story for a friend where he lives. It was mango season, and he grew up loving on the mangoes every mango season. And he ate some for a few days, and he didn't feel so bad, but his skin broke out really bad. And he's an adult, so it's not like he's a little kid. But so uh, some people, they're going to feel sick, some people are not. And then I was out, Justin and I have this trick. I think Joe did too. We got this one place, and sometimes they'll sell us a rack of ribs a la carte, and they usually give us an amazing price. But a lot of people don't know how to plug it in the cash register. So the other night we went, and they're like, "Oh no, we don't have the full rack a la carte." So they brought it with sides, and I ate a few French fries, and uh, I it made me feel not so good. I wasn't horrible, but you could tell it just couldn't. It didn't want to digest. And I've been in that same place eating that same rack of ribs 3 or 4 times already, and the rack of ribs by itself, no problem. Wonderful experience. Perfect digestion. Throw in a few French fries, and I wasn't feeling so good. So wasn't horrible, but I could tell. It's like, man, I ate off the reservation, and I'm paying for it a little bit. So, and I think everybody does that sooner or later. They eat a little something off the menu, and they pay for it a little or a lot. So anyways, it's good to hear from you, Scandemic. And I would say finally, good night, everybody. Sarah, Christina, Scandemic, Lambs, Marjorie. And I know my Comage was in here. Let's see, who else am I forgetting? Didn't see Miss Pat tonight. Didn't see Raymond. Raymond's at a concert somewhere, or the other Raymond for that matter. But anyways, good night, everybody. Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed. Hit the like button. Send the link to other people. And we'll see you next week. And see you on Facebook or Telegram. Join us at Meet Mosaic Telegram, Meet Mosaic Facebook. All right, love you guys. Thanks. Swirly, swirly. Don't fall down the